Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Seven Road. Today we are with Edgar Raul. He is a teacher at the Tonalá High School. He teach English, uh, and he also teach Cine in some workshops in the programs of the high school. So, hello Edgar, how are you?
Hi, Rafa. I'm perfectly fine. Actually, yes, I'm a language teacher at University of Guadalajara, specifically at Tonalá High School. But I actually have a filmmaking major. I actually did my major at the University of Guadalajara. So I have been working in this, well, this scenario since 2005. That was the year that I got accepted in at the University of Guadalajara. So, well, it's something that I really like. I really feel passionate about, and I've been teaching that since I think it was 4 years ago when I started. So yes, I am a teacher, a language teacher, and I'm also a professor of filmmaking.
Maybe all of you don't know this, but he was my teacher when I was in the high school. So I am very honored to be with him today. And today's topic it's going to be movies in general. Today we are going to talk about the simplicity of the making of the movies and the innovation that in our days is making a future for the movies. So let's get started. Let's get this started. So my first question is: a movie must be simple to be interesting?
It's a really good question because, first of all, you will have to define the word simple. I think it is correct in the following sense. If you have a topic or you make a movie that's really close to people's everyday problems or situations that people can really feel connected with, you're going to find yourself making a very interesting movie. So simplicity it's important because when you create something complex, sometimes, and I'm a firm believer of this, when you create something complex, sometimes you do it because of your ego, and I come to find that sometimes, most of the times, it's true. All right. So if you really want to connect with people, you need to think about the type of problems or situations that common people goes through every day. So if you think about the some of the movies that have maybe connected with you the most, you might find maybe there's a lot of science fiction over there or fantasy, but the main topic or the theme, the subject of the movie, it's a very human and simple thing. It can be love, for example. If you make, for example, if you take Harry Potter, and it's a really complex story because you can take that story and divide it in 7 or 8 parts, depending on who you ask and if you're reading the book or watching the films. You're going to find that the themes and the subjects of the films are very, very simplistic. Basically, the subjects are love, family, and finding the truth. Right? So finding out the truth. So if you create something simple, something people can get related to, you're going to create something very, very interesting. All right. So I think it depends on the definition of simple, but I will have to agree with that. Simple is better when you are trying to connect with people.
So if you keep it simple, for example, you mentioned Harry Potter. If you keep it simple in that way, it could lead to make a saga, for example.
Definitely. I think the situation with sagas, and that's something that I think it has been discussed, especially in 2010, 2011, basically when those type of movies were actually the most popular in the market. And it was really discussed, and I actually heard a lot of interviews with the authors and the directors. And to create a saga, first of all, you have to create characters that are going to stick with the audience, right? So you have to think about the characteristics of your protagonist and your antagonist, and they have to have some characteristics that you can get related to. Maybe, for example, in this case, Harry Potter was a really human character, even though he was a magician, right? Mm-hmm. But he was a really human character because he was talented, but not as talented as other characters, for example, Hermione. But he was really talented, but at the very same time, he made a lot of mistakes in the way, okay? So basically, it's something that you can get related to, because when you think about your own story as a human being, you're going to find out that you usually make a lot of mistakes, but at the very same time, you're telling your own story. And if you think about it, if you really, really think about it, most of the most popular characters in comics and cinema and etc. are the ones that are more like us, more human. For example, if you think about the X-Men, the most popular one is Logan. If you think about Marvel, the most popular one is Tony Stark. And if you think about DC, the most popular one is Batman. And I think what they have in common is that they are really human. They make a lot of mistakes, personal mistakes, behavior mistakes, etc. So if you create something simple, something very human, you're going to connect with a lot of people out there.
Okay, and now that you mentioned, I wasn't thinking about touching that topic about superheroes, but now that you mention it, how important is to keep it like the simplicity of a story in an adaptation? Like, for example, how you keep the simplicity in bringing something that is in a comic book to a movie?
Because the most important thing about these stories, and if you think about it, the most important thing about these stories are not the superpowers they have. It's the problems they have to face, okay? Basically, you have characters that they have objectives. And objectives usually give you what drives a story are not the superpower or the special effects or etc. What drives the story is actually the objectives of a character. And most of the time, those objectives, if you think about it, it doesn't matter if it's a Martin Scorsese movie or if it's a Marvel movie, you're going to find that they have objectives that you can get related to. For example, to save someone you love, or to keep the place that you've grown up or that you live in, to keep it safe. So you have to keep everything you have. So the world as you know it can keep going on. So simplicity, I believe it's not necessarily about the type of production you are actually filming, but the objectives you give each character so they can actually find some troubles. Because the most interesting thing about a movie, and any story at that, basically is the objectives. Your characters have objectives and they are going to find some obstacles. And depending on who is more powerful, for example, our character or the obstacles, you're going to get something really, really interesting, the fight of those situations, okay? So I think it doesn't matter how expensive a production is. The most interesting stories are about something that you can get connected with, something that you can get comfortable with. For example, my favorite superhero in the Marvel universe was Hawkeye, because he has a family. He doesn't have really powers, superpowers, but he's always trying to protect someone else. So I think that makes him really human, and that's very interesting for me and most people.
Okay, yeah. Hawkeye, interesting. I wasn't, I didn't see that coming. Uh,
No one does. No one does.
nice. No, it's interesting that you mention it, because in these times, mm, of specifically in the movies that involve superheroes, nobody cares about or nobody cares so much about the characters per se, but they are interested in more in the how similar are with the origin material. So that's very interesting for that, because nobody see that in that way.
Yeah, exactly. I agree because uh, I think the characters that you like the most are the ones that you can relate the most, or the character that you aspire to be. I think those are the main ingredients of when you really like a story. If you see a character, maybe there's one of two. I'm actually convinced of that. You really want to be like that the character, or you are already like that character, and you basically feel comfortable around her or him. So I think that's something that we should be really looking into when we write a story.
Yeah, of course. So, and now moving into another topic, before we enter into this discussion, comillas, um, you mentioned that it doesn't matter how much money do you invest in that movie. So that leads to my another question: how is the innovation in the movie syndicate?
Industry.
Yes, business.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. That's a very good question, actually. I well, more than a couple of years ago, when I was a filmmaking student, I had this amazing professor. He was called Boris Goldenblatt, and basically he built the school where I was a student at. So we because he was a senior person, of course, and he has had a lot of experience, and he began his story of filmmaking. I'm not so sure, but it was even before the I think it was around World War II. I'm not so sure. So uh, you may sometimes when you see those persons, when you talk with those persons, you may think that they are people that prefer traditional ways to make some things. But we actually asked this question: what do you think about the digital area, and the digital era when you relate it to cinema? And he was really excited about it, and I think I feel the same, because he said, well, the digital era is amazing because it's giving a lot of people that didn't used to have the opportunity to make stuff like this, and the digital era is giving many opportunities to people around the world. If you are, I don't know, 15 years old and you have a cell phone, you can make a movie, and that's amazing. Okay, that's an opportunity that if you wanted to make a movie in, I don't know, 1965, you need a very specific type of camera. You needed a certain amount of money to buy film, so you can actually film your movie. So basically, you needed a lot of things that you didn't really have at home. But right now, if you really want to make a movie, if you really like that, and if you have a cell phone, you can make a movie. And I think that's amazing. I think this is the most amazing time to be creative right now, right here, because we have a lot of tools that they are not expensive. Usually they are free. If you think about it, if you think about the apps and everything you can do with, for example, editing software and etc. Well, there's a lot of things that you couldn't have before. So I think it's an amazing era to be creative.
Yeah, when it comes to technology, it comes to my mind like Star Wars, for example. Like Star Wars was a pionero in the making of movies in FX in all of this, and now in 2019 with the Mandalorian,
Mm-hmm.
we saw big screens in the set.
Yeah.
So you think that the it's what are waiting the movies to that are leading the movies to go?
Um, uh, yes, I think so. You see, when you work in an industry, you have to think about many aspects, okay? Because this is not only the an entertainment type of situation. This is if it's an industry, it means that a lot of people actually works on that, and it's from this type of industries. So you have to take into consideration the necessities of a lot of people, all right? And like it or not, money is a very important part of our society. You know? So you can just say, okay, we are very romantic and we're going to keep doing things like we used to do. It doesn't matter the cost. It doesn't matter if we don't give opportunity to other people to do something like this. And I think that this type of industries are constantly evolving. So you can do a lot of more things with less money than you used to. Actually, if you take a look and you grab your cell phone or if you grab your computer and go to YouTube and look for Star Wars fan short films, you're going to find a lot of them. Because a lot of people, if you have a laptop, if you have a cell phone, if you have maybe a small camera, if you have an iPhone, you can make a Star Wars short film, and I think that's amazing. Okay, it's giving a lot of people many opportunities that they didn't used to have. So I think it is very likely that we are moving towards that direction when it comes to filmmaking, but at the very same time, I think it's something really positive because you can have a green screen at your home. You can make an animation with it, and it's going to look amazing. All right. So I think yes, it might be, but I don't think necessarily that is a bad thing. I think it's an amazing thing to be created with.
Yes, of course. And about, like, for example, the green screens, how important is that the actor feel the things alive, the things that surrounds the actor or the actress. So I think personally that that is the most important thing about making movies, the to the actor to feel and sense all the vibes of the set, and what are they trying to share with us.
Yeah, actually, acting is one of the most complex things that you can find in the industry, and many directors don't give enough credit as they should towards the actors because basically they are going to incarnate everything you created before. So uh, of course you have to consider a lot of things. I think right now there's a lot of actors that are going to give you this speech and they are going to say that they are method actors, and that's a really good way to describe this part of the of this industry. And when they say they are method, is that they need certain things or maybe certain objects or maybe they need certain context to play the character they are going to be embarking with. They're going to be playing. So I think it really depends, of course, of the formative experience each actor have. But at the very same time, if you think about engineers, okay, they have to be changing every day. They have to learn something new. If you want to be a doctor, you have to learn something new. And basically, that's going to be a reality for every profession that you can find out there. Technology is changing so rapidly, it's changing exponentially, right? Basically, if you think about the technology changes that you could find between the 50s and the 80s, you're going to find a few. And if you think about, for example, the 80s and 2000s, you're going to find like 10 times more, let's say, technology innovations. And that's because we're really, really changing exponentially. And if you really want to work in a certain industry, you have to think about that. It doesn't matter if you're an actor, an engineer, or a doctor. You have to change with the new technologies and you have to adapt to that, right? So it's not that I don't say that method actors are not important. They are really good. The most amazing actors you can find in the industry are method actors, but at the very same time, they have to adapt to a new world, and they will. I can assure that they will. And well, it's basically how the world works.
Yeah, yeah, I concord with you. So that now that we touched the topic of the actors, what is the future for the cinema industry? We recently saw the Oscars. Well, I didn't see that because I was not interested in the Oscar. I'm not. I don't know if you saw it. uh, so, what is the future about the movies? The speech, the agenda are going to modify what we see in the movies.
What you are asking, it's one of the most interesting things that you can think talk about in the movie industry. Let me tell you a little bit why. First of all, no, I didn't see it. I didn't see the Oscars because basically I don't know if it was a little bit less interesting, but I can tell you this thing. If you think about the movie industry, especially in the United States, you're going to find something really interesting. When the Lumiere brothers and Edison created the first film cameras, there was like two different worlds. In Europe, Lumiere brothers were not really interested, for what I can tell, for what I have read. They were not really interested in money. They really liked what they created, and they were sharing it with the world. On the other hand, Edison really liked money, and really liked the status that his creations has given him. So what's the situation here? At the beginning of this industry, if you wanted to make a film, you have to ask for Edison's permission, and you have to go through that filter, and that was awful, because if you wanted to create something really independent, you couldn't, because Edison had to give it a go. So it was really, really bad. So most people, Edison was working in New York City. Most people, if they wanted to make independent movies, okay, they have to move really, really far away from Edison. So they moved to the west coast of the United States, and that's how Hollywood was created. So what I'm trying to say is, then Hollywood became the monster that it is today. But the thing is that for many, many years, only Hollywood really mattered, okay? And if you wanted to become really famous in the industry, you have to go to Hollywood. You had to go to Hollywood. Otherwise, you most likely you weren't going to get famous. So you had to go to Hollywood. Nowadays, basically with Netflix and Prime and all these other, even YouTube, all right? For example, YouTube or Vimeo, it doesn't matter if you don't go through Hollywood. You can get famous, and you can get a lot of support, and your work can get really recognized around the world, because there's a lot of platforms out there. There's a lot of places where you can show off what you have done. So that's why I think the future of filmmaking, and I think the future of audiovisual arts in general, it's going to be something really, really, it's going to be something really free. And I think that's amazing. If you want to make a movie and you don't have a lot of money, and maybe you don't have a producer, that's okay, because you can make a movie and you can upload it to any sites that you can actually upload videos. So I think the future of filmmaking is a very free future, and I really like that. Okay, you don't have to go to the Oscars to get recognized, and you don't have to be a Hollywood director, so your movies get to many, many people all around the world. So I think, in one word, the future of filmmaking is freedom, and I really like that.
I'm going to share a thing about this, and is that no matter that you try your hardest to make independent movies, in some point you are going to stand by this giant of the industry, like the Academy. And in some point, I don't think that the independent is 100% sure, or the freedom.
Um, what I believe about this, it's that we are not at that point. I concur with you. We are not at that point. It's going to take a lot of time to actually, but because there's always going to be someone that it's going to be the most important or the biggest shark in the ocean. Okay, you're always going to find that, but that only means, in my perspective, that only means that there's going to be something a little bit more powerful than you, but that doesn't limitate your creative work. So when I talk about freedom, I talk about that you can do whatever you want without asking permission or without asking to get promoted by someone else. All right. So if you want to make a movie, you can gather a lot of friends, a couple of friends, and you can make your movie and you can upload it to YouTube. And who knows, you may get a lot of recognition and you may get actually invited to maybe not the Oscars, because as we said, the Oscars are basically the representation of a very specific part of the industry, but you may get invited to some other festivals. And at the very same time, what I do believe is that the Oscars have lost their power. Okay, the Oscars has lost its power because people don't really want to see, or don't really want to watch the same movies over and over again like they used to. So they want to see something fresh, and they want to see it right now, and they want to see it in their cell phones, and they want to watch it on the laptops, on the television. They don't really want to wait for the movie to come out in cinema. So I do believe that there's going to take a long time before we can actually say that we have all the freedom in the world. I don't know if that happens, but of course we have freedom. Okay, I do believe that we have freedom, and I can tell you that because some of my students have actually filmed some short films that have had the opportunity to travel all around the world and to get some recognition all around the world. So I think we get freedom, and we're going to get more freedom every day. But of course, there's always going to be a giant out there.
Yeah. Of course, we in some point. You remind me like what happened to the industry of the music. Like, I don't know, in the beginnings of the 2000s, 200, no 2000s, 2000s, we used to saw these artists that have to come to a producer, and now you could easily make a track and upload it in some platform like Spotify or YouTube easily.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I really agree with you in that point, that in some point there are not going to be necessary some kind of big producers like we used to. So now to finish, I want to know what were your 3 favorite movies in this pandemic.
Okay, that's a very good question. Okay, because the thing about the pandemic is that I watch more TV shows or Netflix shows than movies, but I actually did. I was able to see some films. Uh, I actually discovered some of them are not new. Okay, some of them are not new, but I actually discovered them in this pandemic. For example, there's this movie that's called Song to Song. You can find Ryan Gosling and Natalie Portman in that movie, and I think it was an amazing movie. It basically it's something really really different, and I don't think you're going to find something like that in the industry. So I really really liked that movie, and I really recommend it. Um, Another movie that I actually got to see, let me think about it. It was. Um, I actually watched this movie, Run. I think it was in Spanish is Corre, Run, and I think it was a really good suspense movie. I really liked that movie. It was really creative, and I got really uh, engaged with the main character. I'm not saying that it is a very good movie, but I think it's a very interesting, um, let's say, perspective of how can you tell a story with very little elements. And if I think about, let me think about anything else that I saw. It's a really good question. What else did I see? There was this movie, but I can't remember the name. I think it was the los siete de
El juicio de los siete de Chicago.
Exactly, el juicio de los siete de Chicago. I don't remember the English name. I think it was something related, but I think it was one of the best movies of the year. I really like, and the director and screenwriter, it's my favorite screenwriter of Hollywood. It's an amazing writer. I really recommend that movie. It's amazing. It has an amazing rhythm. The dialogues were almost perfect. The characters were really well built. And I think it was one of my favorite movies of all year. And I actually saw it when I was going through COVID-19. I actually got infected with COVID-19, and I got to see that movie, and I was really fascinated by it. I really, really recommend that movie.
And last question. What are the 3 movies that you must expect this year?
To be honest, there's not a lot of movies right now that I'm expecting, because I don't think that there's been a lot of speculation about different movies. There's a lot of movies that I expect because we usually get involved in certain, let's call it, certain characters or stories. But basically, for example, I'm really waiting for the Batman of Matt Reeves. Matt Reeves. I really want to see that. I don't know what it's going to be like, but I think it's going to be something really, really interesting to watch. Let me think about something else. Let me take a look because we have a lot of movies right now. So if I think about
A Quiet Place.
For example, I have. Sorry, I'm just getting a call. I'm waiting for this movie that it's called The Belle Epoque. I think it's a French movie. It's going to be released, I think, on Thursday, and it's one of the movies that I'm expecting the most. So I really want to see that. And what other things I can expect? There's this really interesting. I don't know if it's an independent film, but I really want to see it. It's called Zombies, Cámara Acción. I don't know what's the because I think it's a really. I think it's an Asian film, so I'm not really sure about the original title, but I really want to see that. I think it's going to be a really interesting movie. So, and I think that's it. I don't know how many I have said, but I think those are the ones that I'm really expecting.
Well, that would be interesting to see that in the movies. I really hope that the movies will reopen at more potential than they are right now. So I really hope that if COVID let us. So it was a real pleasure to me to have you here. It was
Thank you very much.
really funny, really interesting this little chat with you. So I really appreciate that you come by.
It was an honor. I really enjoyed. I really like to talk about movies, and I really like to speak with you. It's always an interesting experience. And anytime you want to talk about it, of course, I'm just one phone call away. You know.
Okay, I keep it in mind. So that's all for now to Seven Road, and it was a pleasure to have you here, and see you in the next time.
Thank you very much.